Maria Willis from Card Bomb here for Tonic Studios, and the latest Stamp Club release has just dropped. It's called the Whaley Great Stamp Set. It's so much fun, and there are a lot of different things that you can do with it. So let's head over to my desk and we can go through lots of different ideas as well as check out a bunch of samples that I've made.
This Whaley Great bundle includes a large 6x8 stamp and die set, and the stamp set is fantastic if you like to color and build scenes. The die set has coordinating dies as well as an extra fancy die cut for creating focal points. Now, I just mentioned that this set is fantastic for those of us who love to color, but I also wanted to show you that this is great for those of us who don't like to color either, or if you just need to make a quick card. So here I'm going to stamp and heat emboss these whales, and I'm doing that on gray cardstock so that I don't have to color them. And you can do this in black or white or any color of embossing that you like, and you'll end up with these great bold images. And you can do it with all of the stamps in the set on any color of cardstock. Now let's take a look at this stamp that is the horizon line. You can use this to stamp the sand at the bottom of the sea or the water at the top. Now it has a coordinating die, and I want to show you some different ways to use both the stamp and the die, which you can see is quite stretchy and malleable. Now I'm going to use the stamp without the die to stamp on this slimline card, and I'm going to use the stamp to create both the sand at the bottom as well as the waterline at the top of the card. And all I'm going to do is stamp it once and then rotate my paper and stamp again. And because I didn't move the stamp, I'm going to get opposite curves. So that's a really easy way to use this stamp. Another way to use this stamp is to create your own curve, but keep in mind that that's obviously not going to work with the coordinating die. All you need to do is just bend it in whatever way you so desire and stamp, and you can really create any curve that you want. Now, like I said, that's not going to work with the coordinating die, and even the first time I stamped it, when I tried to allow the stamp to have a natural curve, didn't line up perfectly with the die. So I recommend, if you want to align the stamp and the die, to use the die first. Die cut your paper, then line the stamp up with the curve on the paper, and then stamp. And this is an easy way to ensure that every time you stamp on that die cut piece, you will get a perfect alignment. Now, another way to use this die is to create stencils so that you can ink blend backgrounds for your cards. So that's what I'm doing right now. And for this first color of ink, I'm just ink blending the sand, and then I'm moving on to the top above the waterline, and I ink blended a sunny sky. Now I'm going to use different colors of blues and blue-greens to create my ocean. And what I'm doing is I'm using that stencil and I'm overlapping the layers of color. And each time I do it, I'm angling the stencil a little bit differently so I get a really unique water ripple look that I think is really pretty. So now that I've done that, let's take a look again at the stamp set. There are some stamps in the stamp set that help you get that perception of having a lot of depth in your imagery. So one of those stamps is this fish stamp, and if you stamp it in a similar color to how you ink blended or colored your background, it will look like the fish are far away. This kelp stamp can also help you get a similar look. So right now I'm masking off my sand and I'm stamping that kelp deep into the background as if it were behind that sandy bank. And now I'm going to add some birds in the sky, and they look like they're far away because they're so small. So that's just another way that you can create that depth in your cards. I wanted to add a little bit more detail to my sandy bottom, so I just grabbed one of the alcohol markers and added some dots to give it some texture. And now I want some shimmer in my water, so I'm grabbing some glacier paste, and again I'm going to use that stencil as a mask and use one of my blending brushes just to lightly blend some of that glacier paste into my background. And I am aligning it with the ripples and colors that I've created earlier when I ink blended my background. So now that I've shown you a couple of ways to use that stamp and die, just remember how versatile they are and that they can be used in a variety of different ways. Now let's use the images that we've already cut out from colored cardstock to figure out how we want to lay this card out. This was really fun for me to kind of put the pieces together in a variety of different ways and figure out what layout I wanted to use. Now I ended up deciding that I was just going to stick to the whales and keep this card really simple, but that helped me figure out where I wanted to place my sentiment. The sentiments in this stamp set are so great. They're all in strips and a beautiful font that stamps really cleanly and crisply. Now I'm going to add those whales onto my card with foam tape because I love the extra dimension that adds. Now, while most of the dies in this set coordinate with the stamps, there's this one really awesome fancy die that cuts out a circle of swimming fish. So you can use that as a focal point for your cards, or you can create your own stencil with it and ink blend through it, as I've done here. Here are 2 card examples where I've done just this. This first one I also used glacier paste, and this second one I used it as the background to frame out my whale. Now this die also makes the most adorable little fish, which are perfect for making shaker cards or for adding these cute little fish onto the front of your cards. Now I like cutting these fish out of the metal sheets because the both sides are shiny and I don't have to worry about if they flip around in a shaker card and the white paper side would be facing forwards. I used my craft pick to help get those off of my die cutting plate, and then I just poked the last few out of the metal foil sheet, and look at how shiny that foil sheet is. I think I could die cut that out and use that on a card too. So here's how those fish look. They're so pretty, especially cut out of that metal sheeting. So I decided that I was going to use these little confetti fish to finish off my card. So I placed quite a few of them onto my background, and then I used my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive to adhere them in place. Now that was such an easy no coloring card to put together, and now that I've shown you all of the elements of this stamp set, I'd like to show you some more samples that I've made. This first card is a quick card made using that circular fish die used as a stencil. And this second card again uses that same stencil with a whale. This card I stamped the whales in gray, colored the background in blue, and allowed my sentiments to pop with color. I chose non-traditional colors for this card. Sometimes life is overwhelming. I love that sentiment, and it's true sometimes. This card I used my Nuvo Aquaflows to create a bright and vibrant background, heat embossed some fish, and added a couple of whales. On my next card, I used the horizon line stamp and heat embossed it multiple times in white so that I could watercolor between the stripes to create a bold and colorful background. On this next card, I used the baby whale and then built a scene around him using many of the coral and sea creature images from the stamp set. I also used a fish in the background. This next card says, "I think you're swale," and I went all out on this one and built a huge kelp forest below my whale. This whale again is just heat embossed in white on gray cardstock so that I didn't have to do extra coloring. My final card says, "I will love you forever," and it's got an ink blended background with lots of dream drops for bubbles, a shiny textured sandy floor, and lots of kelp and critters at the bottom. I have had a ton of fun playing with this Whaley Great Stamp and Die bundle, and I hope you will too. It's available now exclusively from Tonic Studios, and it's available in limited quantities, so make sure you get yours before they sell out. Happy stamping!